Who among you can say that they've earned the right, through the contributions they have made, to be born a German, British, American, or any other citizen? Hands up if you feel that way. Not a single hand. Thank you. And who amongst you would say that it was his or her achievement to be born into a family that could provide decent housing, nice food, a good car, probably, and a very good education? Who of you would say it's his achievement to have been born into such a family? Hands up. Again, not a single hand. I'm glad we can all agree this early on into my talk. You can probably already tell where I'm going with this. Most of us are aware that we are all very, very lucky to be here today at this wonderful conference. It's pure luck, a bit like a lottery, if you like. We have not done a thing to earn our passport. Not really. We were just given it after birth. We didn't even realize at that age what it meant. If the dice had fallen differently, we could all well be floating around in a rubber boat somewhere in the Mediterranean, on the run, hoping for some kind of home. Whilst we've all agreed that we haven't done anything for our prestigious position in the global hierarchy, we still put up fences at our borders and have helicopters patrolling them in order to keep away all the others who have not been as lucky as us. So we're trying really hard to keep our advantage for ourselves. We all know that our governments even let people drown. Today, there's a lot of people in the Mediterranean having a big, big problem. Our governments don't do anything about it. There are other people on the run elsewhere. We don't do anything. Even though we all know we haven't done anything for this lucky position. So I believe most of you would agree that we are the winners of this Russian roulette of life. We've been really lucky. It was a very lucky shot. We were dealt a good hand. Of course, we have trouble at work, with family, friends. So life isn't always easy, don't get me wrong. I also have my issues. But on the whole, relative to the position other people are in, we all have quite an easy life. But that's not to say it's your fault. I'm not blaming anybody. How could I? I mean, you didn't do anything for it. So I don't want you to feel guilty, feel bad about it. Not at all. You didn't do anything for your privileged position, and you certainly didn't force anybody else into his troubled position. So no feelings of guilt necessary whatsoever. But I think it is important to remind ourselves more often than we actually do of how lucky we really are with what we've got. The problem with this is that we hardly ever have time to do it. We are so busy driving in the car to work, we hit the horn when the person in front of us doesn't carry on quick enough when the lights turn green. We have trouble at work, there are other people who are annoying. So we have our little difficult world and keep forgetting how really, really lucky we are after all. And we don't think about this fundamental fact very much. I grew up in Hamburg. My mother was the headmaster of the local school in St. Pauli. St. Pauli at the time, it's a part of Hamburg, was a very rough area. That was 30 years ago. I'm getting old. There were drugs, there was violence. 98% of her children were immigrants. Most of them didn't speak any German. So she sent me to a different school. I went to a posher area, hardly any immigrants, you can see on the pictures. So I had a much easier start. But an important lesson came out from all this because my mother decided to take me on all her class trips. So as a very young child, I was exposed to all these refugee kids, who weren't as lucky as I am. And I saw that there was no just reason for these kids not to have as many opportunities as I do and to have it much, much harder to somehow make it in life. The result was this. I turned into a long-haired St. Pauli fan who listened to Rage Against the Machine at the time. I stopped. And who was basically against most things and rebelled a lot. I didn't understand why I should just carry on the straight and narrow, go to school, do university, go to work, then build a house, get married, have a nice career, brush up my CV, and then die. I mean, don't get me wrong, I finished my school, I went to university, I'm engaged to get married, and I have a kid on the way. So I'm ticking most of the boxes myself. So I'm not blaming anyone who does all this. But, and I think this is the major point, just taking care of my luxury world, my good position, would make all these achievements feel very empty. If I don't share anything with anybody, what do I really have? If I isolate myself a lot, it doesn't feel right. At least it didn't feel right to me. When I was younger, I asked a lot of questions about life. I wanted to know, where was I before I was born? What's going to happen to my grandfather after he dies? All I got was silence, and I started getting a reputation of being a little weird. So it seems we've really created a society in which most people are so busy brushing up their CVs in order to be competitive on the market, to sell themselves, and forget the most basic questions whilst doing this. The most fundamental answers are not there while people think about what they've got to do next year in order to be more popular on the free market. As a result of all this, I had to leave Europe. That was when I was 16. I asked my parents, can I leave Europe? They were quite happy to let me go. They probably laughed when they dropped me off at the airport. They knew they would have a break from the rascal for a while. And they did. I ended up staying, and I finished my school in Colombo in 1998. And I was amazed by Sri Lanka. It's such an amazing place. People are so happy. They have so many answers to so many different interesting questions. It really, really changed a lot in my life, the time I had over there. While it was so amazing, and while I saw that people really think about other questions, I also saw major structural and economic deficits. People go needlessly blind whilst they just need a 20-minute operation on their eye. They die of heart diseases because they're too low down on the list. There are not enough doctors. So by the time you get your operation, you're very likely to already be dead. So I wanted to know, why are there these vast differences in society, in the global economy, where people like the Sri Lankans are not stupid? And I went on to study. I went to university and thought I might find the answer in economics, psychology, and religious studies. I went to the UK, studied for a couple of years. I went to Germany, and then I ended up at the Sorbonne University in Paris, where I finished my studies in 2006. I had a hunch that economics might be the answer to why there are these vast differences. When I finished studies, I was sure of one thing. I didn't want to be a businessman. I didn't want to work at the stock exchange because I saw that the people working in this field weren't really solving the issues I had seen. They were contributing to them and building them up big time. So why would I want to be an entrepreneur myself when I see that business people and economics are ruining a lot of things on this planet. It was all about shareholder value maximization. It was all about profits. It wasn't for me. As a result, I decided to not go for economics, and I chose to join an international aid organization. I started working for the German government in 2006, right after studies. Guess where I ended up? Sri Lanka. The tsunami was still having the aftermaths, and I was trying to somehow contribute with my privileged position to help the people in the country where I grew up, at least for a couple of years. But after a very, very short time, I realized that most of it I would be sitting at the Hilton Hotel, working for the German government, for GIZ. I probably had more cake in the first couple of weeks than I ever had in my life before. I had vast dessert, I was sitting by the swimming pool, and this was meant to be the development aid job. So I realized very quickly that there's a problem here. And the problem in my mind was that they didn't earn the money themselves. They had no real relation to what they were spending. Also, there was no general public, there was no competition, there was nobody really checking on the spendings. So they started wasting a lot of money. It wasn't very efficient at all. And then I was back at square one. 3 months into my job, I quit. So I wasn't there very long at all. And I had to reconsider what I could do with all the privileges I've got. And I decided to found a company. The seemingly most absurd choice I could have made, but I realized that the company is not the problem, it's what you use it for. It's a bit like a kitchen knife. You can stab somebody with it if you like, but you could also make dinner for friends. So it's what you do, it's not what the system is. The system is actually quite useful, it's very efficient, it controls you through competition, and this is when I decided to found a company, Lemonade and Charity. What we do is we produce soft drinks, iced teas and lemonades, and tea bags, and with each product sold, we support people in the growing regions. So you buy a Charity Red, you support somebody in South Africa where the product comes from, you buy a Charity Green, you support somebody in Sri Lanka, and so on and so forth. Same counts for lemonade. Earning the money myself, I was sure I would be wasting a lot less. Nobody would be flying around business class because it would just seem very wrong going around telling people, hey, you buy this product and you support somebody, and at the same time flying around in nice jets and having dinner at the Hilton. That was not going to happen in our case. So after a long search, I found a way, through setting up this company, of using my privileged position to somehow contribute to others, to somehow help others in their less lucky position. I'm not advising you to start a company, not at all, that's not the point of my talk. I'm just showing you that I've realized that I was so lucky and in such a privileged position from the very start that I somehow wanted to do something with this privilege. We agreed in the very beginning that we haven't done anything for our very start. We haven't done anything for our passport. We haven't done anything for the parents we've got. We were just very, very lucky. While we have all agreed on this, it still remains an open question as to why we should support others. And here are the last few questions I have. When you go through the city, you see somebody smile and laugh. Do you prefer that? Or do you prefer when you see somebody run over by a bus? I would think the answer is obvious. You prefer seeing somebody laugh and smile. Even when it's not your next door neighbor, you don't want to see somebody run over by a bus, even when it's somebody who's not your family, not your friend. So We all agree that we are somehow connected. You feel sad when you see somebody cry. You feel sad when you see somebody run over by a bus. So what could we do with this insight? What could we do with the fact that we've just answered, that we were just lucky from the very start? And we have realized and all agreed that we like people being more happy. And my point is that if we put the two together and say, hey, let's remember this for a minute a day, we would already make a very, very big change to our behavior. You spend so much time on social media, we waste so much time with nonsense. We all know this, if we are being honest. And if you remember the single minute, hey, I'm such a lucky guy or such a lucky lady, and it's so nice to be nice, then I think a lot of the problems would already be solved automatically. We would see things differently. We would welcome people who are refugees because we know they didn't do anything wrong. They just happened to have the wrong passport. Thank you.